boy named Ilwan clutches his sister under a blanket made of straw. Outside, the wind screams like a dying animal. Inside, it's colder than the grave. And the fire is gone. It's only December. Forget fairy tales. In the Middle Ages, winter didn't whisper, it hunted. No heat, no stores, no medicine, just stone walls, stiff hands, and the thinnest thread of hope. This is not a story of knights or kings. This is the story of those who endured the cold that didn't just kill bodies. It broke souls. October, the last breath of warmth. Every man, woman, and child poured into the fields. This was no celebration. It was a race against death. Barley, rye, oats, ripped from the earth like buried treasure. Marta, a woman with a limp since childhood, dragged sacks heavier than herself. She coughed blood into her sleeve but kept working. "If I stop," she whispered, "my grandson won't see spring." There were no second chances. Every grain mattered. Every mistake would be paid for, in hunger, frostbite, or graves. And when the sun dipped behind the hills for the final time, they didn't cheer. They prayed, because now the real test began. The frost arrived without a sound. It started with a shimmer on the grass. Then the soil hardened. Then the silence. No birds, no bees, no breath. Inside their huts, families wrapped themselves in anything that held warmth. Old cloaks, animal skins, straw. The smoke from their fires clung to the thatch ceilings, staining everything black, including their lungs. The walls wept icy droplets that froze into crystals. The smell of wet wool, unwashed skin, and dying embers was inescapable. In noble homes they burned logs. In peasant huts they burned chairs, cribs, Bibles. One family watched sacred pages curl into flame, praying as their holy words turned to ash. By December's end, the food was nearly gone, and something darker took its place. They boiled leather shoes, stewed bark from trees, ground bones into dust to flavor boiled water. In one village, a boy named Thomas gave his salted fish to his baby sister each night. He smiled when she smiled. On the 12th night, he collapsed. On the 13th, they buried him in frozen earth. In another village, the oldest among them volunteered to leave. They didn't cry. They didn't beg. They kissed their grandchildren, turned to the snow, and vanished. These weren't suicides. These were love letters written in frost. Fire wasn't warmth. Fire was God. Entire families built their lives around a single flame. They took turns sleeping closest. Children wept not from hunger, but because the fire burned out while they slept. When it died, so did fingers, toes, height. Alina was just 8 when she stayed awake to hold her mother's frozen hands, breathing on them all night. In the morning, her mother was gone. Alina's breath still hung in the air, unanswered. They say her hands never fully warmed again. The light faded. Then came disease. With no sunlight, no fresh food, and no strength, sickness crept in like a thief. Coughs echoed through villages like funeral bells. Priests came not to heal, but to bless the dying. But even then, faith held firm. They lit candles, carved protective runes, hung garlic from doorways, chanted prayers in Latin and tears. Children were told, if you hear a knock at night, don't answer. It's not a man, it's the pale one, the cold itself, come to collect another soul. They gave the cold a name, because naming it made it less powerful. Then, one morning, a drip, a thaw, a bird song. Spring returned, but the silence in many homes never lifted. Doors swung open to reveal chairs left empty, blankets folded on untouched beds, fireplaces cold forever. Survivors didn't sing. They dug graves. They planted seeds with trembling hands, beside the very earth that held their family. One mother knelt beside a thawed patch of ground, pressing her son's toy into the soil like a seed. "I'll see you in the flowers," she whispered. History doesn't remember the peasants. It remembers kings, queens, and battles. But what about the child who lit the last fire with her own drawings? What about the man who stepped into the snow, knowing his sacrifice would save his family? What about the mothers and fathers who gave up their own survival for the chance at a single day of life for their children? These were the true heroes, not in the pages of grand history books, but in the hearts of those who lived through the coldest, most unforgiving winters. Their story wasn't just about surviving a season. It was about surviving the impossible, and they did it with nothing but sheer will. And today, we are the keepers of that story. But today is your turn to act. Like this video, not just as a gesture, but as a tribute. A tribute to the strength of those who faced death head-on and lived to tell the tale, even if only in whispers carried through time. Your like matters because it says, "I remember them. I won't let their story fade." Comment below, what moment in this story made your heart ache? What did you feel when you thought about the sacrifices they made? Did you think about your own family, your own moments of struggle? Share those feelings with us. What does survival mean to you? Your words can inspire others to reflect, to remember, to carry that story forward, just as we do for those who lived centuries ago. But don't stop here. Share this video with your friends, family, anyone who needs to hear it. Share it with someone who may not know the depth of our history. Share it with someone who needs to understand the sacrifices made for the comforts we now take for granted. Sharing this is not just spreading a video, it's preserving a legacy. It's honoring those who survived against all odds. Your share could be the spark that keeps their memory alive in the hearts of people who may never heard their story. And finally, subscribe to this channel. We are on a journey to uncover the most powerful, untold stories of survival. Stories that matter. Stories that speak to the strength we all carry deep within us. By subscribing, you're choosing to honor their journey. You're choosing to keep their memory burning, to ensure that these lessons are never forgotten. Subscribe now because these stories belong to all of us, and together we will make sure they live on forever.